Sorry about that, guys. I had an overlay on, and for some reason it didn't auto come down when the video ended. Super stoked for this first episode of Wednesday Night Live. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and when I reached out to Garrick, he said he couldn't do Fridays, and I figured now was the time. So I could ramble on forever. I am just going to briefly touch on one thing before I bring Garrick on. There has been some stuff going on the past couple days. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, it's irrelevant. I'm not wasting any time on that during this show. We're going to spend all the time talking to Garrick and getting into his mind a little bit. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring him in because I don't have an intro video yet for the Wednesday. So without further ado, it's not letting me unmute your mic. Oh, you're muted on your end. There you go.
Okay, I'm good.
Sorry, it shows up the same on my end as if I muted you, so I was very confused there for a second, but I guess you had muted on your end.
I must have done it on my end. I don't know.
All good. There was a couple little hiccups there, but we're going. Garrick, welcome. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Really
thanks so much for having me. And thanks for accommodating and doing it on a Wednesday, too. It's just a lot easier for me than Fridays.
No, you know what? Like I said, I've been thinking about because there's quite a few people that are busy on a Thursday or on a Friday evening. Mm-hmm. So I had been throwing around the idea for a while. And when you straight up came out and said, like, can you do another night? I was like, man, I have no reason to wait. I might as well just start doing these now. So thank you for that. It was the motivation to actually, get this first one in and done. And, what a hell of a guest to have on for that first show. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I usually ask people is if they want to take some time to introduce themselves a little bit. This is going to be a little bit weird because I feel like there's not a single person watching this show that doesn't know who you are. But just in case somebody's brand new, they've just gotten into ball pythons. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into the questions?
Sure. My name is Garrick DeMeyer, and my business is Royal Constrictor Designs. I've actually been breeding reptiles since about 1992 or 1993. I've had them my entire life, of course, like probably everybody listening. I've always been interested in them. Always growing up, I always had them. I was mostly a lizard keeper, I guess, when I was younger. I had all kinds of different types back, in the 80s and early 90s. There wasn't much available, but I always had quite a few different things. And I started breeding geckos, specifically Madagascar giant day geckos, in my dorm room in college, and I was able to reproduce them. And I'm like, okay, this isn't that hard. I'm going to try another species. So I, got leopard geckos, and then eventually bearded dragons, veiled chameleons, crested geckos. The crested geckos were brand new back then. And one thing led to another. And by the time I was probably a junior in college, for sure, I knew that this is what I wanted to do for a living. I started seeing that there was a market for captive bred animals, and just decided, you know what, I'm not too bad at breeding these things, and I really am interested in it. I'm going to just see what I can do with it. And by the time I was a senior in college, I knew this is where my future career was going to go. I just knew that I couldn't just see myself punching a clock for somebody. I needed to have something. If I'm going to work, 40 hours or more a week, which I wish I only worked 40 hours a week now. But if I was, going to work full time, I couldn't do it doing something I hated. I had to do something that I loved. And I was very fortunate to figure out a way to turn my interest in reptiles into a career. And I've been full time with it since 2000. So this is almost exactly 22 years that I've been doing this full time. Coincidentally, my interest over the years, when I went full time, I was doing a lot of leopard geckos, crested geckos, veiled chameleons, and bearded dragons. In the past, I had experimented with a lot of different species, and I figured out which ones were the most commercially viable and which ones were the easiest to breed. So those are the main species I focused on. But I had everything. I had carpet pythons, corn snakes, rainbow boas, basilisks, you name it, I had it. And but over time, my interest gradually geared more towards ball pythons. And, it's funny because when I go to the NARBC in Tinley Park, I was there at the first one. I've been at every one since then. In the beginning, I was known for geckos. That's what everybody came to me for. I couldn't sell a ball python at the earlier Tinley Parks, but something shifted probably 10 to 12 years ago. And, I got more and more into the ball pythons. I drastically scaled back on the geckos about 10 years ago because I just didn't have enough time to do it all. Even though I had several employees at the time, I was basically just paying them to take care of them for me. I didn't get to interact with them and enjoy them at all. The geckos I'm talking about, the bearded dragons and things. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to focus on what my main interest is. I didn't completely get rid of all that stuff. I do still breed some crested geckos, some leopard geckos. I have a pair of lychees, a few different things, but my main focus is on ball pythons now. And that's the way it's been for probably about a decade now.
So I have a quick question just before we kind of get off of that topic, just because I don't want to forget to ask. So you said you had to do a lot of experimentation on like what's the most commercially viable in terms of breeding, for yourself. What are some of the species that you found just to be like almost impossible to like? Did you have any, even for one? Did you have any species that just, it just wasn't working? Like you tried to breed them, it just wasn't happening. And was there anything like that you experienced?
Yeah. I had so many different species. I can't even remember them all, but, I used to have some of the Europlatus species of geckos, the leaf tails. Those are really awesome animals. The satanic leaf-tailed gecko, Europlatus fantasticus, is probably my favorite individual species of animal on the planet. I love them, but I think that those animals are more for people that have very small collections, very focused collections. I'm sure I'd have success with them if I didn't have, a million other animals here and I could just focus on a few groups of those. I know I'd be good at them, but I just didn't have the success that I needed to with them because they're very touchy animals. And also when I was getting into those, there was nothing but wild caughts available. Captive breds didn't really exist in the early 90s. So that was definitely one species that, or one genus that I did not have a whole lot of success with. I tried, I did I used to have so many different types of animals. The problem is that every species has its own care regimen. And when you're spread out so thin, you have, 20 different species of animals, you're not really going to have that much success with any one of them, because they all need different care. Like probably about 10 years ago, I kind of rediscovered my interest in some colubrids, corn snake morphs, some king snakes, milk snakes. I thought, maybe I'll expand and kind of go into some colubrids too, kind of, just do something other than ball pythons. And, their care is completely different. They have a very simple recipe for brumation and breeding and feeding and everything. But, the weekly care with them, a corn snake poops 3 times for every time it eats. So you have to interact with them a lot more. And I just found that I got a good system set up for ball pythons. And I can breed ball pythons pretty much in my sleep now. They're so easy for me. I've got them down really, really well, almost too well. I'm sure we'll get into it about production, but last year was something for production. Let me tell you, it was incredible and not always necessarily in a positive way.
There actually is something I want to touch on
Okay.
in regards to reproduction. We'll get back to it, but there's a very specific post that you made last year that I wanted to touch on. So we'll get back to that.
Yeah, no problem.
So on the flip side of what I just asked you, did you have any species that you found out you could breed incredibly well, they bred easily for you, but you just didn't like you just didn't enjoy working with them after you kind of picked it up?
Not really. My biggest issue is that I didn't get into this for the money. I do make money and I do very well with it now, but I didn't get into it for that. I got into it because I love animals. Like when I was growing up, I wanted to have one or two of everything. And so there wasn't really like a species that I got into that I was good at that I just didn't enjoy. I think I kind of enjoy all of them to some extent. Bearded dragons were tough because, it's just the time consuming thing. Like when I first built my facility in 1993, and then we moved all the animals from my old place into the new place in like January 1994, which in Wisconsin is the worst time to try to move a reptile collection, but I did it. At the time, I had a lot of bearded dragons and veiled chameleons, animals that take 7 days a week to take care of. And I found that I was not only out at my shop, and at the time, our facility was right next door to our house. We bought a house on 2 acres of land, and then we bought the adjoining acre next door, and we put the shop up there so that if we ever decided to sell the house, which we've done since then, we could still keep the shop. And I found, so it was an easy trip to work. I just walked across the yard basically to get to work, which was very convenient. But it turned out that living on like a county highway and just the location wasn't ideal to raise a family at, like cars driving by your driveway at 55 miles an hour wasn't very fun for the kids. So, but anyway, I found that I was not only out at the shop all day long, all week long during the week, but I was out there for 2 or 3 hours a day feeding baby bearded dragons and baby veiled chameleons because they are very unforgiving if you do not feed them all the time. And so I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy working with them, but it got really tiring not being able to leave our house basically because they needed to get fed all the time.
And I think that's kind of more what I was trying to ask. I assumed you didn't get into keeping any reptiles that you just straight up didn't like. Like I assumed you didn't just go out and buy snakes or lizards that you were just like, oh, I hate these. But
right. Oh no, I never got into anything that I I would never get into any species just for the money, first of all. But, and I like so many different species. I mean, I wish that I could work with 20 different species, but, it's just not possible for me in my situation. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm kind of coasting. I'm not coasting along at all by any means, but I know what I'm good at now, and I know what I've established for business wise. And I don't feel as though I need to start over with anything new at this point. Like I think sometimes like, oh, maybe I should add a new species of some kind, but ball pythons are what I love. I've been into the morph sorry, I'm distracted. My little dog is in here.
No worries. Dude, I have cats everywhere. So if you see me looking around, that's what I'm doing. So don't worry about it.
She's not going to show herself now, but we have a 8-month-old Shih Tzu here, and she's always chewing on everything, and she's just in the room chewing on some paperwork that was sitting on the floor. So sorry about that.
No worries. But we actually have our first question from the audience. It's a buddy of mine, Dylan, and I guess we're just going to go right into reproduction. There's no reason not to, I suppose. Yeah. But he wants to know, what's the largest amount of clutches you've produced in a year? And I'll expand on that one more. When was that?
Okay. 2016, I produced, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was 488 clutches that year. And that was insane.
Oh my God.
It's so hard to manage that many, the ball python season. I mean, I hatch babies all year long. I just hatched a clutch today. I had a clutch hatch last week, and I had a clutch hatch the week before, and I've got one clutch incubating yet. And then I'm going to probably have a break for a couple, at least 2 months, because I don't have any more clutches coming at the moment yet. But, they all come in a relatively short period of time. So, having an influx of, I think that year was about 2,600 babies. That was just puppies. Anyway, about 2,600 babies that year, right around 488 to 490 clutches. But this last year, I did about 475 clutches, and we also produced around 2,600 babies.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, those were my two big, last year and in 2016 were my biggest years. Funny thing is, in 2016, I told myself, I'm never doing that again. Not even going to get close to that again. And what did I do? I built it up. But the thing is, most years I have to sell a certain number of breeder females because I hold so much stuff back that every year I have 100 new females coming up to breed. Well, if I don't want to keep producing more and more babies every year, I have to sell 100 breeder females that year to make room for them. Well, in 2020 was such an awesome year for sales. I was actually in just this last summer, probably in June, right before the big hatching season started, my inventory was probably the lowest that it had been in probably 10 to 15 years. Like since I really started producing, 1,000 plus ball pythons a year, I was almost sold out of everything. I think I had maybe like 100 snakes left from the previous year. And most times, by the time that the new season babies start hatching, I usually have 400 to 500 left from the previous year. It's just kind of, not that they're not selling; they sell great, but it's just when you have that many of them, and you're not willing to just dump them, price wise.
Yeah, everybody knows you're going to sit on some of your animals, right? Like not everything's going to go right out the door.
Yeah, there's certain animals that for some reason or another can just sit on the website and not sell for months and months and months, and others you put up might even be the same morph. Others sell right away, and for some reason, a certain animal will just sit. And so that that happens every year. But yeah, 2020 we had sold so many snakes that I decided, well, if I'm going to be able to sell that many snakes and still need more, like I probably sold a lot of blue-eyed leucistics 4 months before I started hatching more of them. Probably sold a lot of pieds about the same time. I'm like, why don't I just hold back? Set up new breeders, but keep the current breeders that I have and just produce more. And I did that, and it worked a little bit too well. And then I just got completely slammed with babies. And I mean, honestly, last summer when we were hatching all those babies, it was fun and it wasn't fun at the same time. It was just so much work. And we had so many babies hatching in such a short period of time that all we had time to do was to just set babies up into cages and label them. And I had a price list I put them on, but I didn't even have time to take pictures and put them on the website. So here we're just accumulating more and more snakes, and I don't have time to sell them. And then you get the situation like I had to dust off racks that I haven't used in years because I needed overflow space for all these babies. And we're just now finally starting to get back to I still have a lot more babies right now than what I had a year ago or at any time of the year in February. But, it's getting a little bit better now. I just got an order for a customer in Japan that just ordered 100 ball pythons from me.
Oh, wow.
So, that'll be nice to move those out. I just shipped out 15 of them to Thailand earlier today. Oh, wow. So, the snakes are definitely moving, and they're selling here in the U.S. every day too. But with the number of snakes that I have, like right now in my facility, I probably have 1,200 babies, give or take 100 or so. I couldn't even tell you exactly how many, but
that's insane to me, man. Like that's so many babies. That's more animals that I've had in my collection since I started. Like,
I should be able to tell you exactly how many because I fed every single one of those babies today. I got done at I think about 4 o'clock today. Came home, went out for a quick run, got back, and here we are. So, I mean, it was like probably between packing the export shipment and feeding all those babies, that was probably a 10-hour or almost a 10-hour day for me anyway.
That's nuts. But since we're on the topic of reproduction, I did say I had something I wanted to bring up earlier. There was a time last year you made a post. And I can't remember if you had gone away for a weekend or maybe you had gone to a weekend expo or something. But I believe it was on a Monday and you posted, I can't even remember how many, but it was more clutches than I got all year last year.
Yeah.
And you were like, came home to this and you took a picture of them all. And like, I want to say it must've been like 30 or more maybe.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind. Like I was sitting here going, man, if I got 30 clutches this year, I'd be set. And you got it in a weekend.
We went on a family trip to Colorado, to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. This was right around, I think when I got back, I think it was right at the very beginning of August. And of course, that was the beginning of my big hatching season. And I came home to, between all the clutches that hatched while I was gone and all the clutches that hatched the week before I left that hadn't shed yet, I had 100 clutches to set up. So not 100 babies, 100 clutches. I had about 600 to 700 babies that we had to set up. I was almost in tears when I walked into the shop and I saw all that. Not tears of joy either. Tears of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't even know where to start with all this. I mean, that was scary. And it took we got them all set up within the next week, but that was what really put us behind. And I told my wife, I'm like, we are never going on a trip in August or late July to August again, because I don't want to ever come back to this many babies. Because I'm the only person that can really identify everything.
Yeah.
And label them all correctly and everything. So I could hire all the people in the world to help me, but they're only going to be able to do so much for me. I need somebody that has all of my knowledge and experience to help me. That would be the biggest help. But
it's really tough to find people to help too, right? Because you don't want to leave certain tasks to those people, but then by not leaving those tasks to them, you're just incurring more time that you have to spend, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of, I think, small business owners in general have to deal with. And I think people, especially people with my personality, like I prefer to do as much as I can myself, because then I know it's being done how I want to do it. So it's definitely difficult to find the right person. And I have a relatively small market here. I mean, the city and the surrounding area that I live in is probably 75,000 people. And that includes like all the area towns around Wausau, Wisconsin. So it's definitely not a lot of people to choose from to work here. But I do have one good employee. He really, he waters and cleans a lot of the snakes. I'm going to eventually train him to start feeding the babies for me too. I feed otherwise right now I feed every adult myself and I feed every baby myself.
Oh, wow.
And we probably have right now probably close to 700 adult females and 300 adult males, give or take, and probably another 300 holdback juveniles of various ages, and then all the babies that are for sale, which is probably about 1,200. So it's a lot of work for sure. And
So how many hours a week would you say you spend feeding? Just feeding?
Just feeding. Oh boy, let's see. On Mondays, I feed the holdbacks. So that's about probably like an hour and a half to 2 hours of feeding. And then after that, I go right into watering and cleaning them. In my opinion, you don't really it doesn't really pay to start watering and cleaning before you feed them, because if you feed them, they're just going to poop. So I try to, Monday afternoons are basically the day where I feed and water and clean all my holdbacks. And that's probably about 6 hours, I would say. Tuesdays, I feed all the breeders. So that's probably 6 or 7 hours worth of feeding the breeders. Wednesdays, I typically, either Wednesdays or Thursdays, depending on the week, I feed all of the hatchlings and all the for sale snakes. And that's anywhere, like right now, it's about 6 hours, I'd say.
Wow.
Last summer, when my inventory was so low, I could get it done like an hour and a half. It was awesome. And, most winters are like that. As the winter goes on and as spring goes on, my inventory dwindles down, and I'm able to just kind of take my foot off the gas a little bit and relax a little. And this year is definitely not like that. Like, I don't know. This year, I think it's just going to go right from busy to busier. But I am trying to cut back the collection overall and trying to do smarter clutches instead of just quantity. I don't want to produce the numbers that I've been producing in the past. I can't. I mean, I'm going to be 50 in October. I just can't keep up with this anymore, So I'm going to try to produce fewer clutches, but just hit on more of the stuff that I want in those fewer clutches. And so that's kind of my goal for this year, is to sell off enough breeders and just have, like, for example, blue-eyed leucistics. I was making I produce a lot of blue-eyed leucistics because that's what a lot of introductory customers want for pets. So I was producing most of them by breeding a blue eye to like a Pastavi or Pastel Butter or Pastel Lesser or something like that. But only half the clutch will come out blue eye on the average, and the other half will come out byproducts. Well, I don't need those byproducts. I have buyers that'll take them all, but I still have to make an inventory list. I still have to send off the list to people, and I can sell them that way. But it's a lot of work to do that, and it's just even though it's not like if I produce like a Mojave, it's not something that I want to retail on the website, but I still have to find somewhere to go with it. I want, I gotta, make sure it goes to a decent place and everything. So I would just rather not even produce that Mojave. I'd rather breed blue eye to blue eye and get all blue eyes, because statistically I could do that. I could make the same number of blue eyes and half the number of clutches. So that's kind of that's what I mean by doing things smarter and just not producing clutches where byproducts are going to be be more common than the morph that I'm hoping to get out of that.
Well, and basically what you're doing is you're increasing the dollar value per hour of the time that you're investing into your animals, right? Like, by taking those, I don't want to say low end, but by taking those like single gene animals out of the equation, you're making more of the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So we have another question from the chat from Super Scale Exotics. Since we're talking about how you want to kind of focus down your collection and kind of more work on like what you want to actually work with, he's asking, what are 3 most slept on projects?
That's really hard.
It's a really tough question anytime anybody asks.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like projects that aren't popular that I think are really cool, and that's hard to say. I mean, some of the ones that I'm the most excited about is the genetic stripe clown. I wouldn't say that's a slept-on project, but it's a project that not many people have yet, and it's awesome. Like, I finally have a couple of male G-stripe clowns breeding double het females right now, and speaking of like clutches that I really am looking forward to, that where I'm going to get a good yield, I'm breeding G-stripe clown to double het now with various codon morphs in there. And I can see that a lot of those females, which I think I have like eight or nine females, they're all looking really good. Like I can see some of them are about ready to ovulate already. So, I mean, that's a project that I really like. And I think there's so much possibility. The G-stripe mixed in with a clown just makes such a unique pattern. And I think like I'm trying to get leopard into that, spot nose, cinnamon, lesser, banana. I've got a lot of different genes. I'm breeding cypress into that project, fire, quite a few different genes into it. And I think there's going to be some really awesome snakes produced in that project over the years. So that's one of the ones I'm most excited about. I don't really know if it's a slept on gene or slept on project. I know that there's a lot of other breeders that are working towards that as well. So
I definitely say though that the G-stripe clown stuff has really brought the interest back for G-stripe. I'm very adamantly and admittedly not a big G-stripe fan.
Okay.
However, the G-stripe clown stuff is absolutely incredible. It's not what I ever expected out of that specific double recessive, and I'm very happy that is the result because it's absolutely incredible. They're amazing.
Yeah, the other G-stripe project that I really like is leopard. Leopard just gives it such bold black stripes running down the length of the body. It just gives them that contrast that I think the regular G-stripes were lacking. So I've got like banana, leopard G-stripes, and I've done a few other different color morphs added into that as well. And I'm going to continue on that to make brighter and bolder genetic stripes. And I think the G-stripe project in general is something that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. I think they were very expensive and fairly popular. And then like the super stripe stuff came along and everybody decided, oh, that's an easier way to make a striped animal. So then G-stripe kind of got left in the dust. But I think the G-stripe, especially with the clown influence in there too, is definitely a project worthwhile doing. And I would say G-stripe in general is really slept on quite a bit.
And the cool thing about the G-stripe clown project is it's wide open for anybody to do anything with right now. There's not a lot of them on the market at all. Like you can take it any direction you want, and you're more than likely to make something no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I sold 2 G-stripe clowns last year, and they went really, really fast. And I think this year I should produce quite a few more because I'm actually using visual males. So I think that's gonna increase the total number of G-stripe clowns I'm going to be able to produce. So I think I should definitely have more available this summer. And I think they're going to sell really fast. I've got a lot of people that are interested in them. So as far as other projects, I mean, I know the question was for 3. Yeah. And I'm just trying to think of what other projects are really slept on. I mean, projects that I'm really interested in are like, double and triple recessive stuff. I made some triple recessive hypo ultramel pieds this year. Those sold really well. Like this last Tinley in October was by far my best show I've ever done. It was almost double the best show I've ever done. A lot of it was because I had a couple of those down there to sell. That stuff sells really, really fast. The ultramel pied stuff in general, sells really well. I'm working on ultramel clown. I'm working on other different double and triple recessives too. I produced my first desert ghost clown this last, just a couple, maybe like 3 months ago. And I know other people have been producing those for a little while yet, but they were my first one. So I was pretty excited about that.
They're incredible though, right? Like, I don't care how many people have made them. You hatch one of those things out and it's just
and then it's just a matter of what other genes can you get into it. So I'm already, I've got plans for adding.
There's actually somebody asked a question about that, so don't go too far into that one. There's a question I'm going to bring up in a second.
Okay, no problem.
Actually, you know what? We're already on it. I'm going to go find it. But basically, somebody had asked, and I will find the actual question itself. What are the next genes that you have kind of lined up for that project? What's something you really want to see added to that?
Added to clown or
the DG clown specifically?
Well, I mean, obviously doing everything that looks great with clown in general, leopard, spot nose, make Batmans and things like that.
There we go.
Pied, of course, desert ghost clown pieds. I mean, I love pastel in that project. I think it just makes the colors pop. Orange Dream, obviously. Probably the Confusion. That would be really good. I'd be a ways off on doing that right now, but Hurricane. I mean, you could anything that looks good with a regular clown is going to look awesome. Calico, Yellow Belly, especially the combination of those two together, and Spot Nose mixed into that as well. Those are all.
Sorry, you just reminded me about the fact that I've always loved Calico and Sugar on its own, and clowns are my favorite recessive, but I've always thought of the two together as not that great.
Okay.
And then you started posting some stuff. I want to say it was 2020 on Morph Market, or maybe it was last year. And man, it just completely changed my mind.
Well, the key with Calico in clown, in my opinion, is adding Yellow Belly into it too. The interaction between Yellow Belly clowns look fine, Calico clowns look fine. Yellow Belly Calico clowns are awesome looking. Mm-hmm. Their color changes, the pattern is so whacked out. And then if you can add other stuff into that too, like I produced Banana Calico Yellow Belly clowns, those things are incredible looking. Even with pastel into it. I know a lot of people aren't real thrilled about getting pastels into their clown, which is so funny because 10 years ago, you had to get pastel in your clowns. Now nobody wants pastel in their clowns. It does work in certain combinations though. I do agree that pastel with some clown combos don't look that great, but pastels with certain combos, especially Calico and Yellow Belly, look really good. So, I've done like Enchi Calico Yellow Belly clowns, actually Enchi Calico Yellow Belly pastel clowns, and they're awesome looking. So, it just all depends on what other genes you put in there. But yeah, I really, and the best Calico Yellow Belly that I've ever produced is a Calico Yellow Belly Spot Nose clown. That thing it's incredible. I mean, I don't want to say it looks like a Pompeii, but it's along the same spectrum of color and pattern.
You just made me really excited because I actually just got a clutch 2 days ago from a Enchi Calico possible asphalt to my Spot Nose Yellow Belly clown, Het VPI Xanthic. So you just made me go from like pretty excited about that clutch to incredibly excited. So thank you.
Yeah, that Calico Yellow Belly Spot Nose clown, when I produced that thing, I'm like, I couldn't believe how good it looks.
No problem. While Garrick's away from his chair, even the non-visual of that combination, just the Spot Nose Calico Yellow Belly, what an animal!
Yeah,
it's unreal. Like we had I can't remember if he's in the chat or not, but I saw one last year. And it was just a Calico Spot Nose Yellow Belly, and it had to be one of my favorite snakes that I saw produced in 2021. Like,
yeah, the weird thing is there's so many genes that nobody can work with every gene, but there are certain genes that I wish that I would have paid more attention to them when they first came out. Spot Nose is one, but who would have known what Spot Nose would do when interacting with clown? I mean, just a simple Spot Nose clown is so cool, and so that's one, and then Desert Ghost is actually another one. When I looked at Desert Ghost when they first came out, I'm like, I can make something that looks really similar just by combining Orange Dream and Fire. Because, I mean, the general color is similar. The Desert Ghost is just so much cleaner and nicer than an Orange Dream Fire. Yep. So, it was hard. Like I had to pick and choose. And at the time, I was more going for like really visually stunning stuff like bananas and things like that. And I just didn't... I didn't see the value in Desert Ghost back then. And I really wish that I would have hit that project a lot harder. I mean, I dabbled in it a little bit, but didn't do much with it.
And I think a lot of people probably feel that way too.
Yeah. I just think I could be so much further along right now in a lot of projects if I would have had Desert Ghost and put it into more things 10 years ago.
Absolutely. We have Storm Exotics asking, how do you think Hypo would look in the G-Stripe Clown project? And I actually am personally invested in this question because I'm waiting on a girl to lay right now Stranger Pastel Leopard Yellow Belly Het Clown
Nice.
to a Hypo G stripe. So
Yeah, well,
I kind of want to know what you think too.
I've got I'm doing a G stripe clown to hypo clown breeding
Nice.
right now to get clowns that are double het. Unfortunately, I have pastel on both sides. I don't know what unfortunately, but I have pastel on both sides of it. So that is just what I had to do with the snakes that I had available. But I think the hypo G stripe clown is going to be pretty cool. I think that probably not having pastel in it is going to be better than having pastel in it. But I think it's going to be a really cool looking snake. And I'm also going to be doing the same with Ultramel and Desert Ghost. Not this year. I'm not going to start that project. I think I have to wait till next year till my DG clown male is up to breeding size. But yeah, I think the hypo G stripe clown is going to be pretty cool looking. So
I'm pretty excited for that. Now, while we're talking about kind of fringe stuff, are you working with any, let's say like lesser work with genes, whether that's some obscure stuff or maybe some of the stuff that's out of, let's say the average person's price range? We're talking, well, I don't know really where confusion lands nowadays and all that kind of stuff, but things like Stranger, things like Trident, all that kind of stuff. Are you working with any of that?
I have a pastel Stranger clown that's 100% het hypo that I'm growing up here right now. So I actually got him from Kyle Hoffman from Royal Ambassador Reptiles.
Nice.
He lives about an hour from me, so I've known Kyle since he's about 18 years old. And so anyway, I got that snake from him last summer. He's probably 350 grams right now. I decided I probably wouldn't be able to get him to go this season, so I just kind of put him on the shelf, and I'm feeding him really well, and he'll be breeding into my hypo clown project next season. I do have confusion in my collection, but I only have one confusion male so far that I got last year. I might actually just go out and pick up a confusion clown just to save myself a couple generations of work. And let's see, I have a gene called Hijack, which is it's very little known. Ian from Outback Reptiles was the originator of the project, and he hasn't really let much of it go. I was able to get one through a third party, and the base morph looks kind of similar to Desert Ghost. And but it's a dominant or a co-dominant. I guess I'm not sure if anybody knows for sure yet. So that's another one that I'm working with. Trying to think of what other.
Are you doing any lace stuff?
I don't have a lace in my collection. No, that's another one of those that kind of came around when so many morphs were coming out, and I had to pick and choose. I mean, even with a collection the size of mine, I just can't have everything in the collection, and that's where I'll probably miss out on some opportunities with that. Just like with Spot Nose, when Spot Nose came out, I just looked at them like, I didn't really understand how important it is, like some of these subtle morphs. Like if you look at a spot nose versus a normal, definitely a difference. But it wasn't like between a normal and a banana at the time. It was like spot nose. I don't really know. I don't want to produce a bunch of kind of normal-ish looking snakes. I want to produce stuff that you look at it, it's not a normal. Not knowing how a gene like that would interact with clown and with other genes too. So. Yeah.
To be fair, though, back then, even when stuff like Blackhead was first coming out and, Spot Nose was around and stuff like that, I don't think anybody expected how big recessive and like multi-gene recessive and double recessive combos, how important that would become for this hobby.
Yeah.
So that I think might have been another big factor there. I know Billy, for example, myself and my business partner, Nick, actually used to work for Billy. And he's told us many a story of having a bunch of a gene back in the day and not seeing anything in it and moving it all out. And the next year, someone coming out with something absolutely mind blowing and him just being like, why didn't I wait? Why? So.
I know. I mean, I had Axanthic years ago. I started with a Jolliffe line of Axanthic. I actually started with a het male. Back when I first got into ball python morphs, was right around like 1999, 2000. And back then, I mean, all these het males were $1,000 a piece or more.
Oh, wow.
So, I was breeding geckos pretty well at the time and bearded dragons and things, but I couldn't go out and buy, like a $20,000 pied. I bought a het pied male, bred them to normal females, kept back the possible het females, raised those up and bred those, and, made my pieds that way. And so it was, I kind of lost my train of thought of where I was going with that. So I just completely lost my train of thought.
We were talking about having a project and moving it along, regretting it.
Oh yeah. So the Axanthics, yeah. So I did the long way with the Jollop Axanthics. I had a het male, bred them normal females, and then I produced my Axanthics, and then eventually I got a TSK line Axanthic and a couple of VPIs too. But at the time, nobody really wanted them. It took me forever to sell any Axanthic babies that I had. So I had just decided to sell them all and to save the space for a different project. And no sooner did I do that than people started asking me for Axanthics all the time. And it's like, well, if I would have just kept some of those Axanthics, especially the VPI line, but the Snake Keeper line too, if I would have just kept those and put them into more projects, I'd be producing a lot of Axanthic combos and probably including a lot of double and possibly triple recessives by now. I just didn't see the value in it. And at the time, there didn't seem to be a real big customer demand for it. So I'm like, why should I breed these when I sell the babies for $200 and it takes me a year to get rid of them all? So yeah, I missed the boat on that one.
And I mean, I think it's bound to happen if you stay in this hobby long enough, right? Like, it's just one of those things. But BBM Reptiles in the chat is wondering, do you work with Monsoon? That's one that we probably should have thought about.
I don't have Monsoon yet. That's loosely on the target list for this year is to get into Monsoon. I've been kind of apprehensive about buying, $10,000 plus animals over the past few years. I've been mostly buying cheaper projects that there hasn't been a lot done with to stick into projects that I have. That's kind of where I've been focusing more on instead of just buying like the new coolest thing. But I do feel like I could probably do some pretty cool things with that project. So I think we're probably going to do some investing into that at some point in 2022.
Before we jump off the whole projects thing, what about Bongo?
Yeah, I love Bongo. I produced Bongo clowns a couple of years ago already. I have a female that's just about ready to breed now. I've got a pastel Bongo male that's breeding right now. I'm breeding him to the Bongo female and also to a Bongo het clown to hopefully see what the Super Bongo clown looks like. I'm also crossing him into several other different kinds of clown combos too. I really love it because with the clown, there's so much, it changes the pattern a little bit and it changes the color some too. It gives it a really cool look, like just a straight Bongo clown is really cool looking. And I just think if you can find the right combination, I mean, that's the key with all these different genes, especially the more subtle ones. You just find the right combination and get it into all those genes into the same animal. You can produce something unbelievable. Like who would have known that spot nose and leopard would do to clown what the combination of that it did, and I think Bongo has the same kind of potential to, you mix what happens if you do a Bongo stranger clown or even Bongo black pastel or, Bongo banana clowns are, like they're all, it just changes the color so much and really gives them a nice deep, rich color. And so I really like Bongo, and I did Bongo pieds as well. Otherwise, I've done Bongo and Kodam genes, but yeah, I've produced visual Bongo pieds and visual Bongo clown so far.
Bongo is amazing. I personally love it too. So that's awesome to hear. We're actually looking at picking up a bunch, maybe not this year, probably beginning of next year, but we'll get off the whole topic of morphs, at least for a bit, until some other questions about it come in. But right now we have a question about the Lacey Act and kind of your opinion on it and what's going on right now.
Well, I mean, obviously it's something to be concerned about. And speaking of that, the best thing that anybody can do is to contact the legislators and voice your opinions in a respectful manner, of course. Make your voices be heard. Also, of course, donate to USARC. That's really the only organization out there that cares about our industry. And, I just renewed my gold membership. I think everybody should do whatever they can, even if you can't put $1,000 a year and, $10, $5 a month, anything, it all helps. I think that, I am obviously a little concerned about it. Am I worried about it to the point where I don't think I'm going to have a business in a year from now? No. I would be probably selling off all my animals really quickly if I thought that there was actually a threat to my business. But it is concerning. I mean, you just don't want the precedent set that they can just do something. And there's also the chance, even if this would get passed, it's not like ball pythons would be gone immediately. It's not saying that they're going to make the list of banned species, but ball python breeders and keepers need to worry about other people too. It's not just the reptile industry isn't just about ball pythons. It's about the big snakes, all the other different species that are in captivity. And I care about all of them equally. And I don't want anybody to lose the right to be able to have, breed, or sell any animals that they work with. So I really think that, supporting USARC and doing anything that they recommend to do to keep this from happening is definitely important. But, I'm hoping that ball pythons wouldn't be impacted because there is no environmental concern with ball pythons, because that's supposedly the whole point of this whole thing. Animals that can populate in the wild and cause damage to our native habitats and populations. Well, ball pythons are no threat for that. So there's no logical reason why they would be banned, but who says the government always does things logically? And also a lot of the senators and people that are voting on this they wouldn't even know that ball pythons probably even exist, for one thing. Second of all, that they are not dangerous or invasive. So I just think we all have to, work together and just do what we can to keep it from happening. I think that the best thing is if that act is just taken out and not even included in that bill, and then hopefully that'll be the end of it for now. But it'll come back in a year or 2 years from now, because there's always somebody trying to eliminate these animals in captivity.
And just one thing I want to really quickly add, because I noticed a trend on Instagram a few days ago. A lot of people, people are emailing their local, I don't even know what you would call them in the US, but people in power that can possibly affect change. But then I started seeing people contacting all their local news outlets, their TV stations, their newspapers, all that kind of stuff. And while that's great, it's really important that should one of these stations actually pick up the story and then want to do something with it, these people really need to hand that over to USARC. You know what I mean? The wrong person doing an interview could actually do more damage, even though they're attempting to bring people together to fight for what we believe in. Saying the wrong thing to the wrong person could detriment far more than it could help.
It all depends.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it just depends on your presentation. If you're going to go in there guns blazing, not literally, of course, but if you're going to go in there and be shouting off obscenities and acting like bringing a big snake in or whatever in your city hall, things like that are not going to do anybody any favors. It's got to be done smartly and professionally, and it's just got to be done right. And obviously USARC is the best way to do that. But the one thing is that we do have to, let people that aren't necessarily into reptiles know that this is happening, because this is going to affect birds. It's going to affect, it could affect fish. Everything. And I think that we do need to make the general public aware that this is going on and that it could affect them at some point, because most people I think that are into reptiles are, I would say, kind of on board with, trying to, obviously, hopefully supporting USR. But, if you're just speaking to other people that already have your same mindset, you're not really going to help, because we are such a tiny percentage of the general population. I think that we need to have like friends and family and people that we know, if they're made aware of it, and we can actually convince them to voice their opinion about it. And all of a sudden, 1,000 people become 10,000 people, become 100,000 people, because everybody's being made aware of this. And USR is probably the best way to do that. But, I just encourage everybody to tell their family members and friends about this, but point them in the right direction to take appropriate action, not just, go off and, like I said, go down to your city hall with a big boa constrictor wrapped around your neck and say, I want to be able to have the right to keep these. That's not going to work, because, those animals just, a lot of people just still have fears about them, and they don't want to see them in a place they're not expecting to see them. That's just like taking a snake to a park or, something like that, where, you'll get some people that are just terrified of snakes, and they're not expecting to see a snake if they're walking through the park, big boa wrapped around somebody's neck or something. And that goes on. I mean, I've heard about that in my own city here a couple of times too. And it never does anybody any good for that to happen.
And honestly, like that's the truth. And I think a lot of people in this hobby, because realistically, we only talk snakes with other people that want to talk snakes.
Yeah.
And while you're inside the hobby seems huge.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's an endless amount of people. It just seems like there's a nonstop just group of people that are doing this. But the truth is, we are a vast, vast, vast minority.
Tiny.
Whether you're in the US, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in Europe, like we're like a minority's minority.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have to be very, very careful as to how and why and when, we say our piece and how we present it.
Yeah.
So, everybody's just got to be especially careful now.
Yeah.
And the live feeding videos and stuff right now probably aren't helping anybody. An FYI to anybody watching.
Yeah, there are some videos out there that some people put out that are definitely not doing anybody in the industry any favors. I just think that, I try to do as much educational talks as I can. I used to go around to schools quite often. Now I don't really have that much time to do that anymore, but I invite, like, if any school calls me or any Cub Scout group calls me, I never say no. And I never request to get paid or anything for it. I just, you got a dozen kids in a Cub Scout group that wants to come in. Sure. Let's just set up a day and time that works for both of us, and we'll make it happen. And it's amazing how the kids in general, but even a lot of the scout leaders and stuff, is if they're exposed to these animals in a positive way, most of them come at least out of that respecting the animals, if not loving them. A lot of people just like, I never knew these things were so cool. And, I think that's the main thing, is that people have to have positive experiences with these animals. And if they are, they'll be a lot more accepted in the general public. Because, we are a very tiny minority. And, like with me, I've been in the reptile industry for, 27 years probably. And so, most of the people that I know are like me. And, but I have a lot of friends and family members that aren't into reptiles at all, but they know that I'm into it, and they can be around my reptiles, and they're very interested, but, they're not like, they don't have reptiles at home or anything like that, but they would still be supportive of me and the industry itself if I asked them to. But yeah, it's just a matter of, not promoting reptiles in a negative way, but doing it in a positive way. That I think is the most important thing to get the majority of people on our side.
So while we're on that subject, I just want to ask you, like, it's kind of a racy question, but at the same time, I don't think it is. And you're more than welcome to just pass on it, and we can just move on to the next thing if you don't want to answer it.
Okay.
What are your feelings on egg cutting videos?
Egg cutting videos? I mean,
in regards to outside people seeing it and how they would view the hobby.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really enjoy doing egg cutting. I do egg cutting videos. I don't really enjoy them very much because I just figured that, you know, it's hard because a lot of times I don't even know what I'm looking at when I'm cutting open an egg. So to me, it just is kind of I mean, if I'm not really showing anybody anything, I don't really see much of a point to do a video on. So if I, you know, and I don't like to just hack my eggs open. I like to just make a little incision big enough where the snake could get its head out if it wanted to. And I try to look in, especially some of the clutches I'm more excited with. I try to look in and see what they are. But a lot of times I'm like, yeah, that could be this, or this. And I don't really know.
Oh, hey, that's a belly. I have no idea what the hell that is. Like,
yeah,
great.
Exactly. So, and I guess I never really thought about anybody watching a video where they don't understand what I'm doing. You know, obviously I'm not a big proponent of cutting eggs before they're ready to hatch. I always make sure that these snakes are going to hatch within the next 24 hours or so on their own. You know, I always make sure I can feel the babies in the eggs and that they're on a day where, you know, that's only a day or two away. You know, I know some people cut them way earlier than that. And to me, there's just, you know, you waited all this time, you grew up that female for 3 years plus, and you know, you waited all through the follicle development and the egg laying and the eggs incubating. Like, you can't wait another week, you know, like I don't understand that mentality at all. But yeah, I've never really thought about what, like, just somebody that's never been exposed to reptile breeding at all, if they watch that. And
it's more because it's not necessarily violent or gruesome or anything in what we're actually doing while we're cutting these eggs open, but some of the way that some people present them, you know, sometimes there's a bit of blood from the veins in the egg, and you know, somebody that doesn't breed snakes won't understand that blood or whatever isn't from the animal. It's from the veins and whatnot, right? So it's a question I've personally been mulling over in my head for a while. We personally stopped uploading egg cutting videos. But yeah, it's a question I had just because it's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, when I do egg cutting videos, if I ever see anything like that where I you know, there's some blood or something, I generally try to explain why that happened and that that's not from the animal itself. And I always reemphasize that I don't cut early. I cut when the baby, and I explain that the reason why I'm cutting is not so much to help the baby out of the egg or anything. Well, it's kind of, I cut the eggs so that every baby is able to get out of the egg in case their tooth would break off or something like that, and they couldn't get out. I'm doing it more for the safety of the snakes than because I just have to see what's in that egg. So I try to do that, and I'll probably make more of a point to do that in my future videos. But like I said, I don't generally do a lot of egg videos. I should actually go back and look at my 2021 videos. I maybe cut eggs on 5 or 6 of them, but you know, probably did 25 to 30 videos. Well, probably more than that. Probably over 50 to 60 videos in 2021. So yeah.
No, and I wasn't necessarily asking about your specific videos. Obviously, your videos are generally, I want to say, a lot more educational than the average YouTube video from even myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd say that you do a much better job of kind of explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, all that kind of stuff, than the average video. But there's, for every one video like that, there's 100 that aren't, right? And that's kind of, I guess, the issue. It's not really an issue, but
yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really watch a lot of other breeders' videos. I watch a few, but I don't have much time. I mean, I'm normally watching like I'll watch Justin's videos. I'll watch I'll watch some other breeders' videos, Billy's sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's normally in like the 10 minutes a day that I take to sit and eat some food while I'm at the shop. I don't really have time to sit and watch videos very often because I'm working all the time. So I haven't really seen a lot of other videos of how people are doing that or the sensationalism behind it. I just do my videos. I mean, it's mostly just for educational purposes and just trying to basically explain what I'm doing and just show off my stuff. But I don't try to make a big production out of it. I mean, I'm a pretty laid back guy in general. I don't want to be a big showman about everything. It's mostly just educational. And also I don't really have the time to edit my videos much. I mean, my videos are literally just give the camera, which is my iPhone, to my employee and say, okay, start it. And I just one take, as long as I don't screw up in like the first 30 seconds, just one take, even if I screw up later, that's it. And then I take it and put it on my computer and upload it. And that's the end of it. I mean, I don't really get any more advanced than that because I don't have the time to go through and edit or add music or anything like that. And so, yeah, I try to keep it really simple. And I think a lot of people like that. They like kind of just, I get right down to what I'm going to show in the video, try to keep it as short as possible. I do have a hard time. I could make my videos a lot longer than what they are, but I know that for YouTube videos, the more or less the shorter is better. If you keep it between 5 and 10 minutes, you're probably in better shape than making like a 20 to 30 minute video. That's like when I'm watching videos at the shop when I'm eating lunch or whatever. If I see the videos over like 13 or 14 minutes, generally don't watch it because it's going to take me 2 or 3 days to finish that video. So I'm trying to keep mine relatively short and maybe come out with them more often. And during the hatching season, I do try to do 2 videos a week. I have so much more to show then. Right now, like at this time of year, I actually struggle a little bit for content. Like I should probably do a video tomorrow, and I got to think for a little while. I have a list of ideas on my phone, but I got to think of like, what am I going to show this week? Because I don't have any new babies to show. So, yeah.
So speaking of not having time, we've been going an hour and 5 minutes already. I was going to go another 10 minutes. I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you because we've been kind of sticking to the chat almost exclusively for questions so far. So you were talking about how you had a huge 2016, you had a huge 2021. Mm-hmm. You've been kind of changing how things are going to happen over there. So how many clutches are you expecting this year?
Well, I know I'm not expecting as much. I told myself this over the past few months, I'm never doing that again. And I did say that in the past once too, but now I'm really serious about it. So ideally, I think I would like to, and I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I'd like to settle in at right around maybe 300 clutches for the next few years. And then I'd eventually like to get down to about 200. And, eventually 10 years down the road, maybe get down to like 100 or so. But to me, even doing 300 clutches would be relatively easy for me. 200 clutches, I don't know what I would do with all my extra time, honestly. So I'm not quite ready to get down that small yet. But I am holding stuff back to where I could probably do that at some point. I'm holding back a lot of double visual recessive females and a lot of, triple hets and things like that. And a lot of really, if I sold all of my holdbacks every year, I could probably double my overall income because I'm holding back, every year I hold back about 200 babies, but they are the greatest 200 babies that I've produced all year. Yep. So, it's just a matter of getting the collection fine tuned to the point where I don't need to make as many clutches. It's hard when you're going for some of these rarer projects or harder to hit on projects. That's why I produce so many clutches. I mean, some of my clutches are made to produce snakes that the average person wants, like albinos, blue-headed cystics, pieds, things like that. And then a large portion of my clutches are made to produce things that I want to add to my collection or that like more higher dollar stuff that I want to have to sell. And it's just a matter of amassing a collection of that so that I can, like, for example, my double het dreamsicle females, I'm still breeding those, but after this year, I'll have no need for them because I probably have like, I don't know, 8 of those, but I have several lavender het pieds, I have several pied het lavenders, and I've got probably in 2023, I'll probably have at least a dozen dreamsicle females breeding.
Oh, wow.
So I can breed like all of my other projects into those and make even cooler versions of dreamsicles. I will have no use for those double hets at that point because, when you breed a dreamsicle to a double het, you're only going to get a dreamsicle 1 out of every 4 eggs on average. Well, then that's fine. And sometimes, this last year, I even did some videos on it. I hit it, and I've seen a number of dreamsicles in those clutches, but I would rather not take the chance because for every 1 clutch where you hit 5 dreamsicles in it, you're going to have a clutch where you produce none or 1. And then you've got all these other byproduct snakes that I don't necessarily want. And then I still have to find a place to go with them. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting the collection down to the point where I can maybe have, like, I'd love to have about like 350 breeders. And then, probably with that number of breeders, I could pay more attention to every female. It'd be more likely that I get them all to produce for me. So, or not all, obviously, but, get a higher percentage to produce. And I wouldn't need as many, 350 females versus 700 females. That's half the number of females I have to feed every week. That's also probably half the number of breeder males that I'm going to need. That's half the number of babies that I'm going to have. But if all of those females are producing the type of stuff that I want to produce, I just don't need the numbers. So I'm just kind of, it's too much work. Right now I probably have averaged 60 hours a week over the past 10 years. And I have other things I want to do too. I work like Monday through Friday. I get those 60 hours in between Monday and Friday. I'm working all the time, and I've got a family here. I've got a wife, I've got two kids, and I have I like to run. I like to do other things. And I don't have much time to do that. So if I can make better clutches, but fewer of them, I think I can do it without affecting my overall income too much, and I would have more time. So that's the goal over the nenext couple of years, is to get that down. But I know I'm not going to do 475 clutches again this year. I can guarantee that. So I would say probably between 300 and 350, I think, is what I'm kind of hoping for. I actually hope that I don't have that many more females produce for me, which is weird to have a breeder say, I hope I don't produce that well. I just want specific females. I really care if they produce or not. But a lot of them, it doesn't really even matter to me because I still have so much inventory left from last year that I don't really need to produce a lot of especially the more common stuff. I don't need to if I didn't make another regular albino this year, it wouldn't make a difference to me at all. So, that's just an example, but yeah, just fewer clutches. I don't know exactly what the number is going to be, but I've sold a lot of breeder females over the past year, probably sold 60 to 70 breeder females in the past year. And this upcoming season, once they lay, I'll be selling a lot more too, just to make room and also to cut back at the same time.
That's awesome and absolutely crazy to me.
It's crazy to me too, and everybody tells me that. My wife, every day, she's like, why are you breeding those snakes? You're making too many snakes. I'm like, I know, I can't help myself. I feel compelled to do it. But everybody thinks I'm crazy for making as many as I do.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into our very last question, and I actually have a bunch more for you, but I'm hoping that, somewhere down the line we can get you back on. We'll keep those in the back burner because, the chat's been going off. We've had some great questions from them. Okay. But this question actually came through the chat earlier as well, and I didn't want to bring it up then because I had it for now. But what was your first big disappointment or letdown in the hobby, and how did you deal with it? How did you come back from it?
What do you mean by disappointment or letdown?
In any sense. For example, somebody in one of the videos invested really heavily in an animal that they couldn't verify the genetics of. And then when the animal went on to produce, it wasn't what it was claimed to be. And they lost a lot of money. It was a trust thing. they learn that, you can't just take everybody at their word. Just anything like that. Anything in this hobby that's kind of
I would
really bummed you out.
I would say, the first one that I can really remember is back in 1999. It was in 2000. I sent a big order of geckos to a guy in California, in Los Angeles, and it was paid by cashier's check. This was, so when I was in college, I didn't have money I was in school. I was working my butt off. I was taking care of my animals. I had like 2 part-time jobs, and I went to school full time, and I didn't have any money. So my reptiles, a lot of it, and unfortunately, came through credit card purchases. I got into like $20,000 worth of credit card debt.
Yeah,
I worked really hard. I dug my way out of that. I had like $7,000 of debt left, and I got this check, this big cashier's check it was right around $7,000. I think it was $6,700, and so I sent the geckos off. It was a COD thing where he gave FedEx a cashier's check. They sent it back to me. I deposited it in my bank account. I almost immediately wrote out a check to my credit card company, paying off my entire balance. I felt so awesome. Like I dug myself out of all that debt. So great. A week later, found out the check was counterfeit. And so then I had to I contacted my credit card company, told them that check isn't going to work. I ended up having to pay the minimum balance again. And it probably took me another 6 or 8 months to get out of it. $6,700. I mean, I don't even remember how much I was doing in sales at the time, but I mean, this was in 2000. Like it was right after I went full time with this, and I was not making the kind of income I am now. So that was my first big letdown, that somebody would actually take. It was probably like 70 snake, 70. It was like leopard geckos and crested geckos and things like that. But and so I contacted the police and everything, and nobody did anything about it. It was just, which I understand, but it was really disappointing to find out. That was my first big reveal that there are people in this world that just spend all their time trying to figure out how to rip other people off instead of working hard and doing things the right way. And so I would say that was my first big disappointment, that I realized, wow, there are really people out there that would do that to somebody else. And all those hard earned animals that I had, I sent off, and somebody got those and got to profit off of those, and I got nothing. So that happened to me actually a couple times. Over the years, I've been kind of like any typical way for people to steal from you, whether it's credit card fraud, whether it's sending animals, to somebody that you think and they're going to pay you later for them, things like that. You just learn your lessons as time goes on, and you cut that avenue to get screwed off, and then people always find a different way to do it. And that's a letdown, I would say, is that they're just to realize that there's people out there that will take your hard-earned money or hard-earned work and just steal it.
And I mean, it's a huge, very unfortunate lesson that I think anybody that even doesn't want to do this full time, but wants it to be even a part-time source of income for them. They have to realize that those people are out there, and unfortunately, there's a chance you might have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that's not to say the majority of the people that we deal with aren't fantastic, right? So.
Oh yeah, most people, most of my customers are incredible, awesome. I do a lot of repeat business, and people come back to me for animals every year, or sometimes several times a year. I mean, that's a really big part of my business. If if you don't treat people well, they're not going to come back to you. So then you're always finding new customers. If you take good care of your customers and you treat them well, and you're always there to answer their questions and help them out, that they become future customers as well as current or past customers. And it's a lot easier to keep a customer than it is to continuously find new ones out there. So I just believe in being there for customers, answering any questions that they have, helping them in any way that I can, and providing the best quality animals that I can. And that's what how I run my business.
And I mean, like, I don't think a buyer could ask for more, right? Like it's really frustrating when you try to purchase an animal and the person, can't give you the time of day. Whether you're getting the one word answers or they basically don't want to talk to you unless they see the money in their hand. Like
Right.
it's tough, and it makes it tough to even make the purchase because, some people really want to know the person behind the animal they're purchasing. And some people just don't have that, selflessness to give their time to others, even when they want to give you their money, unfortunately.
Yep. I mean, I'm very available on email all the time. I Monday through Friday, I go in, I check. First thing I do when I get in the morning, I spend, anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 hours answering emails. And, and I'm always, when I'm at the shop, I'm always available over the phone, Facebook and Instagram and stuff too. It is a little hard to keep up with all those different ways. There's just so many more ways people can contact you now than there was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's hard for me to keep up with that. Like sometimes I'll forget to check my Facebook messages for 2 or 3 days at a time, or Instagram. I always, it's never on purpose. Like I won't just not respond to somebody because I don't want to deal with them because they're asking a question that I think is stupid, or they're not interested in an animal that's expensive enough for me to give them the time of day. I'll spend as much time with you if you're buying a $100 snake for me as if you're buying $1,000 or $10,000 snake. I spend as much time with customers as what they need. So, that's what I really feel like customer service is to some extent kind of a lost, I don't know if it's art, but it's not as common as it used to be. And I don't know, I've always been really big on customer service.
Well, Garrick, I mean, I think that's an amazing point to kind of end this on. I appreciate you giving us this much of your incredibly precious time. I'm going to let you get back to your family now. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a great show. And I really hope to have you back on because, like I said, I do have quite a few more questions for you, but we'd probably go till 10 o'clock my time if that was the case. So
yeah, I can, when I get on a roll, I can start talking too. So I could probably do until 10 o'clock as well. So, but yeah,
well, I don't want to keep you that long. You got a family, you got to get back to you. So like I said, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Just let me know when you want me on again and I'll be happy to do that.
Perfect. And you know what? I'm sure I'm going to get a question about it. So guys, you will be able to get Garrick's shirt soon. He is working on it. Just hang tight.
Yeah. Okay.
You look awesome.
Right now, I don't have shirts available for sale on my website yet, but we're working on that. It's a website issue. We're trying to get that set up. Hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to do that. But if you do go to the NARBC down in Tinley Park in March, I will have a limited number of shirts available. I'll have black and I'll have gray available. We just got in a shipment of them, and we'll have some available down there. But hopefully on the website, you'll be able to choose, size, shirt color, and everything soon. So just keep an eye on the website, Royal Constrictor Designs, for that.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to drop you off the live, do a quick outro here, and I'm out. Okay. So for the 15th time, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right. Have a good night, Garrick. See you later.
Thanks. You too.
All right, guys. That was absolutely incredible. Couldn't have gone better. Thank you for all the questions. I didn't even get to all the questions in the comments, and I apologize. But we got some really good questions out there, and it was just great. That was such a fun time. I think I am going to do more of these Wednesday night lives. I like these a lot. We had really good viewership, and we had a lot of engagement from the people watching. So look forward to seeing more of these. And there's no Friday night live this week because unfortunately we have some snake stuff that we have to deal with on Friday, and I work all day. So there's just not going to be enough time for me to fit a show in there. I apologize, but hopefully this Wednesday night live fills in for that. And other than that, guys, I hope you all have a fantastic night. And I will catch you probably next Friday, if not next Wednesday. We'll see about that. Peace, guys.